Hi, my name is Sally Barnard, an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer. Welcome to Call Me Zena, a true story into the spiritual realms. Join me as I sit and discuss the journey of self-discovery, and with the help of my spirit guides, it's time to trust your intuition. Sit with me and call in live 888-994-4995 Studio A. And now onto the show. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate that. And I know I have many people that tune in every week to listen to me. So here I am. Hopefully you call, if you want to call in and get me live, just call in at 888-994-4995 and I'll answer any questions. Today, actually, we have a topic that came to me because I have a lot of people asking me this. Toxic relationships. It's very controversial, but in my mind, and I'm waiting to see actually what my guides will do to answer my questions for me. I was going to read something from the book here, but I know, Karen, you have 15 minutes and then you have to leave. So I'm going to give you some of that time and not necessarily read my prose. But it's a good topic. I have no idea what my questions are going to be. I have no idea how I'm going to answer, but I'm going to try to stick to that topic for the first half hour of the show.
I can already think of a question coming from toxic behavior. Isn't toxic behavior learned young, and is it when a child does not receive love or that security?
There's a couple of answers actually to that question. So if you could just give me one so I can tune myself in that I can answer, and then we'll go from there.
Are we taught like toxic behavior young?
Toxic behavior, I believe, is learned behavior. Yes, it is. It's what we, as a child, we come in, although we do know, but we don't know that we know a lot of our past relationships. So you really rely on your parents to hear and feel and see how you're going to behave. So if you come into, say, a toxic relationship with parents that are already touched by society and labeled toxic, and you hear that, it carries on. And they often say it carries on from one generation to another generation. And I do believe that. And you get many people today, because they understand that, say, I've broken the pattern. And that is also very true, because if you recognize that toxic behavior and you yourself as you get older, but as a child you don't know, you just know what you're seeing, and you can recognize that. Can you break that? Absolutely, you can break that toxic, and that will go on for generations after that too. So it's an important topic. Yeah,
I agree. No child is brought into this world hating and being prejudiced. It's all learned behavior.
Exactly, it's learned. But that makes sense, because your parents are your teachers basically in the beginning, and if they I can't say not doing a good job, because they have learned from their parents, or you see that, and it goes on and on. So there has to be a time that we own up to that, and we say, as you get older, I don't want this anymore. But that doesn't always happen, so it goes on to the next generation.
I feel like as, time goes by, nowadays there's so much more that children are exposed to, and adults have to go through stressful situations as well, with the economy and all these changes going on. But I was going to ask, the power to change is possible.
100%, Karen. I'm not saying everybody uses that power, because
Right.
It carries on and on. But if we can own up to a lot of that, begin to see it, then the people, I believe everybody's had something toxic in their life, because it's the positive and the negative. It depends how much it actually affects you. So if you see, for instance, parents, whatever it is, and they're arguing, it could be drinking, it could be drugs, it could be anything, that are always in a bad mood, you begin to feel that that's normal. But as a child, as a baby, you don't understand that. So you're learning that. It's learned behavior.
Well, don't we, as younger women, we fall in love like fast and want to have kids and want to be the perfect wife and have the perfect family, but that's not how it's always
Not at
is.
all. It isn't. I know. I mean, I myself was married at 19, and I won't go into my relationship there, but it wouldn't be, because we got divorced anyway, so that I can say, but it wouldn't have been something that I would have chosen, a person, let's say, in my 30s, because I'd already learnt a lot. But that happens to many people, that the person, let's say my ex-husband, may have been very good for somebody else. But if there's that toxic, it's just, you don't know at 18, 19. That's what I'm saying.
And is there a difference in the culture? Like I'm Latin, I'm Colombian, and I know that we're raised to take care of the house, take care of the kids, take care of, the man. And the man is the breadwinner. I've noticed in USA, both parents work because of the, cost of living.
Right.
And I'm not sure in England, were you raised to be a
Well, I
wife?
was, because I'm going back a long time in England. It's probably very different today, and both mothers and fathers, they work. But when I was actually born, no, it was unusual for a woman they were there to look after the household, to do the shopping and the cooking. It doesn't mean that that person was a bad person, but they didn't know any difference, so that continued. But it did change, just like in any culture. In England, of course, I go back there many times. Well, I haven't been back for a while, but I definitely see the difference with the younger generation.
Which is why it's been so difficult for the fight for women's rights and pay parity in the working world, because women were brought up early on, in the 50s, to be, caretakers of the family.
Yeah, but if you look nowadays, there's women in construction, women in, transportation, driving, and there's
Again,
women who can do it.
That's also learnt behavior, because you're going to see in the movies that as we change, and from a spiritual point of view, I mean, I'm getting my answers obviously from my guides here, but when you see behavior, and that can be positive and negative, but the positive is that you do see women doing things that they didn't do 40 years ago. So the children that are being born into the world today, or even the last 20 or 30 years, are seeing portrayed on the movies, but they also see the violence. They also see, so it goes, again, with what I talk about a lot in my show, we need that balance. A woman can do all these things. If there may be a difference in strength, and that we have to accept that, but a woman can train and, be able to do, I can't say, I don't know what a man can do, but there are men that also can't do these things. So it's up to the individual, but going back to the fact that we have changed, but again, there are so many women that are in toxic relationships, which is really basically my theme, because people may be tuning in to see that. And that's learned behavior not only from your parents, from your associates, if you talk to somebody, or as a child, as a movie, what do we see on the movies? They do warnings today. This may have violence, or this may have that in it. But again, this is all what we're learning, right? So let's try, especially as the world is today, let's tune into positivity.
And why is it that they say, or that saying says, hurt people hurt people? So instead of being compassionate, empathetic, or understanding, we just bounce off one another?
Well, that's vibrational energy, which is bringing it back to more of the topic, I guess, because you tend to go and mix and meet people that at the level that you're at. So if you can begin to recognize that level, let's say someone is very toxic in their behavior, but if you think about it, they're going to meet friends that are the same because they have shared an interest in what they're doing. So the key is to learn to begin to know thyself. Once you can begin to do that, and you can break away, because you don't know what you're doing wrong until you've You see that you're doing wrong. I mean, that doesn't justify why you're doing it, and we all should know, but if we've never been taught that, it's hard. It's hard.
Right.
And would you say that if you're experiencing toxic behavior from someone else, that many people give it right back and become toxic themselves when it was not in their nature before?
Well, yes and no to that, because if someone really is not, you've got to understand what you're doing. So if someone's only around toxic people, that usually rubs off on that person. But if that one person, I think this answers your question, can break away a little bit and see other people around them, if they're more inclined not to be that toxic to people, then they're going to feel, because you've got to have a lot, I think, inside of you to act, even to meet the people in the first place. I say it's learned behavior, but if you're gravitating towards somebody that's, let's say, the negative side of yourself, you're more inclined to go with that negativity. But if you are more of a person that's a happy, well, you don't have to be happy to be, but more of, you're not going to have a whole lot in common with someone who's always talking about somebody else, always putting somebody down, and has a lot of hatred. You're going to feel that, so you're not going to become friendly with that person. It's also in our personality trait. That's what they're telling me. Yes, many people come into this world without even knowing it from other lifetimes that have a genuine dislike to life. They really do. And if you feed that, which you can do by meeting people that are toxic, it's going to come out very quickly in that person. That's why what we had said in the beginning, learned behavior. You need to break that cycle, because I truly believe that it goes from generation to generation. And in my belief, to bring it back to on the spiritual level, we're born into the same families. It may be just a friend, but we're going to be drawn to be brought in because we're learning. That's really the key to this. So if we don't learn it in this lifetime, we're going to meet the same people in another lifetime. So it's up to us to start the learning process somewhere in one of these lifetimes, because it will continue on to another.
That's where I see, you learn so much in life. Everything's a test or a lesson. Everything is supposed to happen. You can't question, God or the universe or your future. You just, that you're meant to be where you're meant to be.
And we are, Karen.
But we don't want to be with a negative.
Only, it came to me, and I have to interrupt this because it's coming very strong. If you've chosen to get over this, let's say, before we come in, I do believe that, because we see there's no judgment on the other side. So you're going to come into a family that has been toxic to get over it. Oh my God, is this coming strong? So when you come in, as much as you don't, if you haven't learned it in your last lifetime, what's the best way to learn it in this lifetime? By being with a toxic family, actually. It contradicts a lot of what I'm saying, but it also makes sense in a lot of what I'm saying. So how are you going to learn this lesson if everybody around you is not that way? So I think it's a learning, they're just telling you this, it's a learning curve here. But it's still up to us to understand, to break that, so that the next, or when we come back, or our children from this generation won't have to have that lesson learned again.
Okay.
So it's does that make sense?
Yes.
It's really, really important. So my attitude towards toxic people is, at this point in my life, I've earned respect from people. I'm not going to ever, because I have had toxic behavior in my life, ever have to put up with that anymore. So for me personally, I can't tell other people, but this is what I'm doing. If I see something toxic, no matter what it is, even if it's a food that's not good for me, I'm going to stay away from it.
Aren't we all on, we're on that learning curve, like you said, and if we listen, we can see or understand better. But when we ignore those feelings, that intuition, that is when you fall into jeopardy.
Exactly, but if you can remember talking to people, because we've all got, it's again, had learnt behavior, If you can begin to recognize that, because we don't always recognize a toxic relationship, because many people, they use excuses.
It never starts that way.
Well, it can, but if you don't recognize it, Karen, you're not going to know that it's toxic. And usually people in relationships, let's talk about, are on their best behavior in the beginning. So as you go through a relationship, there are many, many warning signs. But if you don't know what the warning signs are, or yourself, if you're a toxic person, you're going to continue, and it can be vice versa. The key is to understand what toxic behavior really is, so that you can then move upwards and be happy and not have to have toxic people in your life.
So what you're saying is that if at some point in a person's life they don't recognize the fact that they're in this toxic world and find a way to break away from it, they're doomed to come back into a toxic lifestyle again.
Well, I can't speak for, because I don't know everything. I only know what they're telling me. It makes sense that if you don't recognize it, you have to wake up and begin to recognize it, because we learn here. This is a learning journey here. So if you continue doing the same they say this saying over and over again, I believe that goes into the next lifetime. Because if you keep making the same mistakes and you don't change it, nothing is going to change.
And in that sense, if you don't learn in this lifetime, you never make it to that next wonderful dimension?
Well, we all go when we pass here, but there is another, which we've talked about, which probably viewers may not necessarily know, but we are moving from the third into the fifth dimension. And yeah, as much as I know, and if my viewers know more, please ask me the questions, because I rely on what I know. You're not going to go into a higher, let's call it vibrational energy, because it kind of makes more sense. If you don't move towards cleaning, that's why I don't want toxic in my life, because I want to move on. So if I stay in, even if I'm half negative, I'm not learning. So I try to be as positive as I can and have positive people around me, so that I can move into a higher frequency, higher vibrational energy. If you don't see it, you're not going to go. You'll see people in that same lower energy.
I know you've explained this to me before, but I don't remember. You mentioned going from the third to the fifth, but where's the fourth?
That's what our thoughts. That's another story, Steve. I really don't right now.
Okay.
We can do that definitely on another show, because it's a little advanced. We can do that. But
I actually was listening to you and had a question come up.
okay.
When a child is raised in a loving home, they're not raised with any fear, they're not raised with any doubt, they're not raised, and they have a lot of support. Other children are raised more independent, their parents, there's so many different ways of raising kids. So when you get older and you fall into a toxic relationship, when do you know that it's time to get out?
Well, we get all the signs, Karen. It's just that we don't always take notice of it. If you can, one of the first signs would be, in my mind, you're continually unhappy and feeling frustrated, and you're not being treated the way that you deserve to be treated. If someone doesn't treat you that way and they disrespect you, I would think that's partly between the partner and yourself, or even if you don't have a partner. Why accept unacceptable behavior? And that is a big field. A lot of things. It's the way people talk to you, it's the way they behave towards you, and it's the way you feel. You're going to attract how you feel about yourself. So if you're constantly maybe bad-mouthing other people, guess what? Bad-mouthing people are going to come into your life, and they'll be, because they're bad-mouthing, doing the same thing. So the most important thing is to recognize yourself. If you begin to do work on yourself, if you begin to understand yourself, then you're going to see. Because you know what? Who comes first in your life is yourself. And if you don't respect yourself and you let people walk all over you, then you're going to let it happen. The main thing is to change. Oh my God, are they coming through strong with this message?
I feel it, because there's when you're in a toxic relationship, you don't know because you want to make excuses like,
Absolutely.
oh no, it's okay, he was having a bad day.
Yes, of course.
Or it'll get better next time. I'm sorry, next time, okay, I'll forgive you. But it becomes a habit, a
Well,
bad
it comes
habit,
with,
or
there is a name which I would call codependency.
Okay.
So we should probably,
Yes,
and
I've
maybe
heard
our
of that.
viewers know about
Yes.
codependency, because you're always ready to make excuses for that person. And if you, as long as you make excuses, that person can be as nice as anything to you, and suddenly, oh, this is perfect. But the moment that person, because they will change, no matter who, if they're toxic, they will. If you don't recognize it and you stay codependent, you're going to continue making the excuses. They can say sorry, but you'll continue to still put up with that behavior.
So here's another question that came to me was when you when you see animals have an instinct to know if
Yeah.
the human being is good or bad. As human beings, we're not all sensitive to people's energy,
Right.
people aura, or things like that. Some people don't even know the whole chakra, or there's so many beliefs.
And you're absolutely right, because if you don't have the opportunity to be around people that will understand what is happening to you, you can stay there. But if you're, say, let's use, I hate to say violence, but if someone is being, that's more mental toxicity, is very difficult.
Right.
Violence is there, it can prove, but you know what, mentally, if someone's doing that to you, is as bad as violence. Violence is easier to understand because you say, this person is hitting me. I have to walk away eventually, because people will see a bruise or whatever. They'll say, what's going on? But mentally, people don't always know what's going on.
So why will somebody stay in a toxic relationship for many years, year after year after year after year, and never really realize that they had the power to escape that?
Well, I think deep down, but we don't want to admit it, Steve, people know, not everybody, but it's hard because if you're not happy with yourself and you're insecure within your own being, you're more likely to stay there. But once you start working on yourself and say to yourself, I deserve better than this, and you're going to start meeting people that say to you, you deserve better, then that person is beginning to wake up. People can go a whole lifetime and not,
But those same people that are being told you deserve better are constantly making excuses for why they're putting up with the toxic behavior.
Well, that's exactly what we were talking about, because they will put up with it, because that's what codependency has a lot to do with.
Well, and this is another question that comes to me. It's all, I guess, in the home that you grew up in, what your parents let you see, how your parents' relationship is. I guess all of those have aspects.
Absolutely, but then again, I'm going to say from the spiritual side of this, many children, babies come in to actually help their parents. So if, let's say, the mother and father are toxic, the child has chosen, because I believe we have spirits, soul families, to come in, and they sometimes give their life for that. I absolutely believe that, so that they can begin to learn that, you know what, this is the worst thing that could happen to me, so they can see now where they're going wrong. And they've come in to teach. And there's been examples of children that have done that. There was a little boy, I can't remember his name, but he was amazing. And he came in to teach, literally. And then at 9 or 10, he passed away. And I can't remember his name, but he wrote beautiful poetry. So there has been cases where it looks like, he came in to show the world that it doesn't have to be that way. And who are the best people to show at that point are your parents, because they then maybe wake up to that. We need to do something different.
Well, like and I don't want to, take any focus off you.
No.
In my story, my son, he was an angel son. I feel it now because it took me a moment to accept the fact that he was gone. But then when I accepted, I started feeling like, wow, He came into my life. I was a young mom. I had unresolved childhood trauma. I didn't, do the best I could. But now I became so much better now that he's in heaven and he's my guardian angel. And the 13 years I got of his life taught me so much.
And you know something here, the three of us sitting here have each lost a child. I have, Steve have, and you have. So there's something here that I feel spiritually that we've all learning from. I mean, the worst thing that you can imagine is to lose a child.
Yes.
And in your particular case, we won't bring it up, was horrific, Karen. But you're going to, and I've told you this, we've known each other quite a while now, that we can see the lessons now because they're helping us, actually. They're helping. I believe we get messages. I believe, for me, I know, and something made me stay. Please stay for the first 15 minutes of my show. And I know you need to leave.
It's our angels.
Of course.
And I feel that's why I was mentioning about the animals, because like when you walk into this studio, there's love and light. Mm-hmm. You feel it. You get goosebumps. You feel welcome. You feel part of a family, and you don't always get that outside. If you're at a grocery store, you have many different
it's a safe
energies.
environment here. I feel like it's being cleansed, so we
Yes.
that's how they are able even to come stronger to us in a situation like that. We can get these messages, but with a lot of background and all this going on, it's harder to interpret. Me as an empath and as someone that can receive these messages, for me in an atmosphere like this, I can tune in very quickly. If I'm in a grocery store with a lot of different vibrational energy, I'll feel people's vibration, and then I get like myself, shaky.
Yeah.
So it's good to, and we talk even about saging a place, because I do believe that, even if it's not, it is what we believe. So I think if you sage somewhere, you're clearing energy, because that's what we believe. Right. So I think we're in a safe environment here. I think that the topic is good for today, and I believe whoever calls in or the questions that I'm asking are what we're all meant to hear.
Yes. Like as humans, we also have our instincts. We also have sixth sense, or as even a guide, like how you were guided. And it's amazing. When do you start seeing how that benefits you?
When you begin to know, I'm going to say thyself. Because then, I had many years with Aldo in the beginning. He's been gone about 20 years, but I had 18 years with him. I wish I had known now what I knew when I did, but I didn't know around him. Because sometimes, and I'm sure people feel that way about me too, I don't want to hear anymore. It's enough for today. But I can't get enough of learning in my lifetime today. So it's beginning, even I say I'm because I've been doing this a little while, beginning to understand more and more of what Aldo taught me in the very beginning. And I talk about what he did, but it's only even now that I'm beginning to even understand more.
So why is it as we get older, we get wiser?
It's not always about age. It's because maybe for myself it might be because I've had a more experience in life, but a child can. Aldo, my guide here, was reading a newspaper at a year old. He was telling me his parents, his mother used to think he was the devil. She didn't understand it. But he chose to remember. So it's any age that you can begin to wake up. And it doesn't matter if someone's in the 90s. And he used to tell me that. It doesn't matter as long as they start to get it, because then it's going to continue in lifetimes.
And if you're very fortunate, Karen, you get to that stage in life where you do see things clearer and become a different and a better person.
Right. And then that's what I was talking to Sally about, like the change when we know we have a toxic behavior or a toxic pattern. We're the only ones who can say, okay, I need to fix this.
We are the only ones. People can tell you, they can tell you anything. It's still up to us to act on it. You've got to, we all have problems in our lives. It's how we deal with those problems, Karen, and some are much worse than others, because if you have, let's call it mind-altering things in your lifetime that can do these things to you, you don't always see it. So you've got to be kind of clear-headed in order to see anything like that. But we all have the ability to change. It's about changing, no matter how small or how big it is.
It doesn't matter when.
But that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter at any age. You can be in your 90s and still have the same toxic behavior going on. You change it, even it doesn't matter.
So how do you choose to be happy and stay happy?
Your choice, entirely your choice. It's positive and negativity. So if you think about it, if you keep feeling negative about anything and you're not happy, you can go through your life that way, but isn't it nice to know that there may be a different way to behave? And then when you start to behave, you see good things happening to you, because the guides, just like anybody else, and I was saying this to bring it back to the show a little bit, how they, they could want to guide us, but they're also very similar to us in certain ways. Now, I have no proof, but it's what I feel. And if you continually try to show yourself to somebody and they keep saying, I don't believe in all this, and you can give them many signs. I believe they say, we'll do it another time. There's no time. But I truly believe they don't ever give up. I don't want to let people know or think that they ever give up. But they might not show you all the time what you need to know, because there comes a point in your life that you need to know this and you need to understand it. And then the world opens up to you. I promise you that. As far as what I understand, once you begin to understand that you have to stay away from toxicity. Can't even say the word. It's so important. It is so important. That's why I chose the show today with that. Don't usually have a theme of, like this.
And something you've mentioned many times and you've taught me, we have free will.
Yeah.
And we can bring ourselves out of any situation if we will exercise that free will.
Well, yeah, of course you can. Absolutely. And any type of, we have free will to be happy, Steve, and that's what I really should say with that. We have free will to be miserable. We have free will to whatever we do. We're very controlled here on Earth, very controlled. And to be controlled is usually a negative atmosphere. And that's exactly what I hate to say even now, what the world is experiencing, a lot of negativity. And that negativity brings forth more negativity. So the more you stay in that and you don't raise your vibrational, let's call it vibrational energy, because it is, and the more you stay, no matter whatever, people, places, and things, as long as you stay there, it's hard to raise that vibrational energy. But usually, when you begin to understand that and see it, something happens to you.
Yeah.
Something, and I know we only have like 1 more minute before we have the commercial, but you were given messages. You will be given messages. Oh my God, I did that and look what happened to me. This is good. Does this continue? Yeah, it continues. As long as you believe it continues, it gets better and better and better.
And if somebody wants to see how it happened to you, they can scan the QR code and purchase Sally's book, either in paperback or
an
online.
ebook. Yeah,
an ebook.
ebook. Yeah, absolutely. I get carried away and I forget to say that I do have other messages that I can give people. And my art on clothing. This all came to me typically in a dream, because I opened up to the universe. And I got all these messages. Do
you ever get too many messages where you need to shut one down?
No, because I try to pace myself. Okay. Maybe, they come to me, but I think only relevant information right now comes to me. And I think we have to break for a commercial. Yeah. And I'm sorry to see you go today, but thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you.
A true story, Call Me Zena, is the telling of Sally Barnard. Born in London, England at the end of the Second World War, she came into the U.S. in 1979. A mother of 2 and a grandmother of 4, she settled in Florida and worked in real estate. While going through a difficult time in her life, she was admitted into a hospital overnight in December of 2005. While settling back into her life, she began having vivid dreams and documenting them. By the 3rd dream, a lady gave her a message to draw. With no artistic background or interest into art or history, Sally listened to her dreams and grabbed a paper and crayons Today, she has over 150 pieces of inspiring art and poetry. This book follows her journey and interpretations of these messages. She describes in detail on how she is able to astral project and who she has met along her travels, including her spirit guides. This book will show you how anything is possible with an open mind. These events have changed Sally's life and direction, and this book will show you how to change yours. Purchase Call Me Zena on Amazon today, authorhouse.com and amazon.com.
My story starts at 4 or 5 years old. My name is Sally Barnard, and I was born at the end of the Second World War, in the middle of an air raid siren going off. My parents were in a movie theater, and my mother went into labor. My father ran out of the movie theater, but there was no cabs to be available because everybody is running for cover. However, they found one, and the taxi driver was given the address to take my father and my mother to the hospital. As my mother was in labor, about a half an hour, I arrived at exactly midnight. I think I was fed messages at a very early age. My parents used to like to play cards, and they had a card game every Wednesday or Thursday night at home when I was a baby. And I actually said to them one day, "Why do you keep waking me up at night? The card game is waking me up, and I can't get back to sleep so quickly." And they looked at each other and they said, "We're not really waking her up." They were quite away from my bedroom. And they called in a psychic to say, "What in the world is going on?" And the psychic said that I'm getting many messages that are waking me up at night. I thought whatever I was experiencing, other people were experiencing too. You don't know until you realize that you are different. Many things were happening to me, things that were unexplainable to me. What I had dreamt was happening. I could sense many things, and the things that I was sensing were coming about, but something was going on. I will explain to you everything. You're ready. Thank you for joining me through this journey of self-discovery with the help of my spirit guides. I'm Sally Barnard, and you can find my book at authorhouse and amazon.com, or visit my art on my clothing in my boutique at artbysallybarnard.com. Now back to the show. Well, welcome back to my show. Guess who's still sitting here? Karen. She loved the show so much, and I don't want her to catch the rush hour traffic, but here we go. She was asking such interesting questions to me, so I'm happy to answer more, and I'm happy that you're still here for the next half hour.
Yes, so much comes up, and one of the questions that has been loud in my head is, if we're raised in love and we're raised to love one another as ourselves, why is there so much hate and bad?
Again, it comes to black and white, good and bad. There's two sides to this. You can't be all loving without having something to learn from it. It's like you can't be all white or all black. There has to be that balance. But when we begin to understand that, we begin to recognize what situation we're in. But I think in order to learn everything, nobody goes through this life with everything okay. I don't care who it is, they'll have something. But that's how we're able to learn. It depends how much we've had enough of it in a lifetime. And we can say to each other, or to yourself basically, enough is enough. I understand it, I get my lesson, I'm going to change. If you don't, we may still continue. I mean, it's entirely up to the individual, and also up to that individual where they are on their journey of life. That's also important to know, because we've chosen to learn to be here. I truly believe we're on a journey.
And the beauty of life, if you really listen, you start learning, and you become wiser, stronger, healed.
That's a perfect example of that, because if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to recognize it. But when you begin to say, you know what, I'm looking for a better way to live this life, I'm better. I talk a lot about on the show negative and positivity. So if you stay in that negativity, it's hard to see the positivity. But once you begin to open up and see positive, you're going to see synchronicity, positive people around you. But again, which it brings it back to this, that if you allow even a small amount of that negativity to come in, once you know better, let's say to speak, and that can take a lifetime to learn better, then you say, I will not allow that person, place, or thing to come into my life to jeopardize my own journey, because this is what it is. But you have to get, I'm going to say, to a certain point even to recognize that. But once you begin to, then it's up to us to change that. I can't expect somebody else to change. I don't intend to change anybody else, or you do anyway, because people are who they are. But you don't have to put up with it. You
Yes.
personally, whoever, I say you, me, anybody, don't put up with it. That's a very strong message that I got, and that's why I kind of wanted to do this show, because you don't put up with unacceptable behavior. Now, unacceptable behavior might be different for you or for me, but if it feels uncomfortable, and that's the word, if it feels uncomfortable, don't tolerate it. Do not
Right.
tolerate it, because you're jeopardizing your own self.
There comes a time in life where you make up your mind, say, I'm going to live my life differently. I'm going to be a better person, and I'm going to choose love over hate. And when that happens, there's an explosion.
But then that's why you will get and attract the people in your life. But it's still up to our own journey to decipher that. Because you know what? And they say the devil or the angel, that just came to me. You'll still get these situations happening. But it's entirely up to where we are on that journey to say, out. I don't want it. Because I've done a lot of learning, and this came to me very quickly, actually, to understand what I'm actually talking about. It didn't happen overnight, but it came quickly when I started to realize it. And many people go through it. I personally, on a personal level, I will not accept today, and I still might, but I'm saying right now, I will not accept unacceptable behavior. I won't. But that's how we have to be.
Yes.
You have to be strong over that. I can say these words anywhere. We can all say, no matter whatever it is, your unacceptable behavior is different to everybody, for ourselves. As long as you say to yourself, this is unacceptable to me, we then have to make the choice. Do we want to continue with that, or do we say, enough is enough? Free will, bring our own free will. We have to be strong enough in our own situation, whatever it is, a person, a place, or a thing, and I know you've all heard that before. It's very important to recognize it. Once you recognize it, then you carry on and you're able to do something about it.
I have
coming
something
from
coming
social.
to me that like not too long ago. I felt like I needed to go where I was at, because I felt like something was just go home, and it just kept pounding my head that way. And then I'm like, why? So is there that angelical protection?
I love that. I'm getting goosebumps, Karen, because you're open enough. We all get these messages, but we don't follow through. Truthfully, I don't know the situation, but that is the time to leave. If you're so strong that, and it's like even as simple as, and I've used this many times, to turn right instead of left in a car. Go with your gut. And especially in a place, if you feel that so strongly, ask yourself, I'm feeling this, accept it, and follow your own gut, because your own gut, which is your higher self too, is talking to you. You don't even have to know the outcome. That's also very important. If you walk away from a situation, or you go the right turn instead of the left, you don't have to know what happened. It doesn't matter. But the fact you did it is what's important.
Wow.
I hope that makes sense to you.
Yes.
So don't always look for the outcome. It doesn't matter. You made the right choice.
It feels good because you don't have to live with a guilty conscience.
100%, yes, absolutely. Because then that guilt starts to set in. And once that sets in, then you're not listening completely to what you go, well, I did that the other day. You know what? I'm going to do that again.
Why as human beings, some of us are tested more than others?
That's our choice. Totally
It
our
is our
choice. Yeah, we
choice.
may not be aware of that, but you know, sometimes the harder your life is that you're more on this journey to open up to all that is good out there. But when you begin to see that, that's where I feel I'm at. When I begin to say to myself, I know better than that, not in an egotistical way, but to create or do the same thing that I have done maybe in my past many years ago, I know better today. Then I, for myself personally, will understand and say, you know, I'm done with that lesson. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But I'm done with that lesson. When you reach that point, you know it, Karen. I know with myself, I know it. It's an inner strength that you get for yourself. And that applies to everybody, actually. But if you're unaware of it, how do you know you're even getting that inner strength, right?
Yes.
Make sense?
Yes.
Good.
And we're like, so
I love this.
who we-
I'm so happy you stayed.
I feel it. Who we are today is not who we were yesterday.
Absolutely.
So you can't judge a book by its cover.
No, you can't. You can go back. And, you know, people say, if I had known then, I would have done it differently.
Yes.
But by just saying that, and that's coming to me, is perfect because you don't have to repeat it again once you've done it. There is no time on the other side, and all the lifetimes are kind of all together too. But for our point of view of what we say here, if you've done it once and you didn't like it, or you've done it twice, if you do it again, if it was toxic, you need to still learn that lesson. But once you say to yourself, no matter, even if it's eating something that's bad for you, people do that. I eat sometimes, I shouldn't have dairy. And I'll say, well, you know what, that's entirely my fault. I know better. Right?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
I do. Yes, I do. But I'm much more aware of it because if you're going to go through no matter what it is again and again, there has to be a time to say to yourself, I've had enough of this. Is it worth those few minutes of even eating something? That you see me doing this today. I shouldn't have any desserts and things. But you know what? I say to myself, is it worth having something that might disagree with me for those few minutes of me enjoying it to have hours of discomfort? No, it's not worth it to me anymore. It's not worth it.
I'll remind you of that.
No, I'm totally there. You've seen me do that. You see me. I've said no. And I'm tempted because you say, just take a little bite.
Oh, no. I'm talking about
I have
stuff
temptation.
that you inflict on yourself.
Yeah, but now it's more for me as anybody. If I recognize the problem, and anybody that recognizes it and continues to do that, then you know what? Who do you have to blame? You have yourself, right? And that's where anybody should be to understand that. I'm not saying you can't suddenly say, oh, everything is going to be perfect because we're still learning. But the point is if you recognize it and you recognize that you're bringing in people with that same problem because vibration hits the same person which will have a similar situation to you. So you're then surrounded. Suddenly, everybody in this room is so damn negative. What do you want to do? You want to stay there? No. Get up and walk out.
And isn't it true that if we as humans never get to that point in time where we have that aha moment that we decide to be a different person and break away from the negativity
Right.
of the world, some of us never get to that aha moment, and then we have to repeat. And
That's
repeat
fine
and
too.
repeat.
I'm not saying that we all have to get there, Steve, but that's where that person is on their journey, and that is absolutely fine. I can't change the world with what I'm talking about, but does that person who has recognized that, and that's a very good example, have to be with a person that hasn't recognized it? That's their journey. Let them do whatever they want. You can't change people, but if someone has already learned better, then that's why I say for myself or anybody that's at that point, I've done what you've done. I had that journey. I'm no more in my life today. And that makes absolute 100% sense to me,
And
be it whatever it
It
is,
makes
right?
absolute sense because I was able to listen to your teachings and continue to learn in my journey because I got rid of the toxic behavior that was ruining my life before.
Right.
So I was an open book now and ready to
But you
learn.
have to, not you have to, you don't have to do anything, but I think people have to recognize that. And by recognizing it doesn't happen all the time either. You know, we're tempted with a lot of different things, whatever it is, be it people or, again, people, places, and things in our
Yes.
lifetime. That makes a lot of sense. Because you know what, if you haven't learned that completely, it's still going to tempt you no matter what it is.
And there's
It's-
always going to be a snake in an apple.
But it's up to us to make that decision. And when you make that decision, then for myself, and it's like, oh, I'm always going to be this way. No, I'm sure I'm going to get situations that are going to test me again. But I think at this point in my life, I certainly know how to recognize that and walk away from it for me and for anyone that's listening. You can recognize it and not do anything about it, and that's fine too. That's your problem, not mine. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, but that's the way it has to. It has to be that way.
For us that have bad stories, and we're still trying to make it by today, where on a dimensional level are we? Because if we already surpassed the turmoil, the hell, the bad, where do we go?
You're going to see, and there's a way to understand that even more, Karen, because what we felt was coincidences in our life is actually synchronicity. So the more you begin to see, we can judge our level, because things that keep happening that you say can't be coincidence, so synchronicity appears. So much so that you begin to say, oh my gosh, this is great. Look at that. I was just thinking of that. So synchronicity is not just saying something that you've said or you suddenly see a license tag. It goes much further because that synchronicity brings people of that level into your life. So once you actually see a different way of living amongst the people that are at that level, it's hard not to distinguish that. You can see the good, the negative with the positivity. That's why if you let somebody let's look at it, I'm seeing it very clearly, into that circle of positivity that is not that way and that will start to abuse that situation, that's when it becomes toxic for that particular person in your life. So you're going to open up to all good things when you see it. But it doesn't mean to say there aren't bad things going on. They're telling me to explain it that way.
I can feel it. I feel it. Like we're not always 100% sure, but we do have a spiritual guidance. We do have
100%. 100%. And it's up to us to see the difference when you're happy and you're around people and you see them coming into your life, which you say, at one point that was coincidence, that person that's in your life suddenly, or people, hey, that's synchronicity. That's not coincidence, because you're now putting that vibrational energy out to attract the people at the level that you are at. And that's so important to begin to understand that. And I talk about that a lot, but I'm only today understanding so much more of that.
How is it that you're born with more gifts than others?
We all have them. It's up to us to recognize our gifts. Mine certainly isn't singing. Now, I'd love to be able to sing. However, I would love to, and hopefully in the next life I'll be able to sing. But I can draw. I can do what I'm doing. So it's not always, everything that we want as a gift. But to recognize, we all have something. We all have something. I didn't know until I was told that I could paint, or that I could even do what I'm doing now. I haven't been doing this many years.
Right.
But I
Just
felt
as an
very
add-on to your previous question, why is it that after having lived through hell, what happens next? It's only after you have come out of that hell that you've been through that you're open enough to see the light and to move forward in your life.
Is it easy to believe in people when so many people have hurt?
It's easier.
Oh, it's easier.
It's easier, but the most important, and I will say this again, and I know I've been saying it, and they're telling me to, as long as you believe in you, if you believe in you, and that you can do different things to what I can do or what Steve can do, but believe in your gifts, believe who you are, and you will still get tested. These people will come into your life and they'll say, whatever you're saying is not where I'm at. That's fine. We all have different personalities. But again, we have 5 minutes, and I know, but it's the most important thing is to recognize what's going on. Recognize this and recognize the good with the bad. Okay.
So someone shouldn't feel crazy if you have a strong thought, or you have that voice from.
No, that's a gift.
You.
That's a gift to yourself. If you're told to do something in your head, you feel uncomfortable doing it, but you want to do it, and that suddenly you say, you know what, I'm listening to this. It's like this side and this side. A lot of this will make sense when you've heard a lot of these things, and you'll say, well, wouldn't that be better if I listened to that? It may not be what you want, but they're helping you. They're helping you. If it's negative energy, you're going to feel that too, because you're going to say to yourself, I think I feel more comfortable doing that, and yet something's telling me not to do that. That's something telling you not to do it, which is a positive, not every situation, but if it's a positive situation, then that's your higher self guiding you with other people.
And I feel that once you come out on the other side of the evil you've been living in, that then and only then can you be open enough to move forward and learn.
So you can get rid of the bad chapters and rewrite your story?
Well, no. Yes, you can, but you don't want to rewrite it, Karen, because all these things that you've had, or you personally, anybody, it's been a learning experience. The key to do it is, and I'm not going to say go back into everything, but you're going to look at it in a different way. And that's where the importance in distinguishing what it is and what it isn't, is to look at it in a different way. So if it starts to behave the way that it was when you were looking at it and it used to be that way, sometimes it's good. You don't dwell on the negative, but it's good to see what happened to you when you were being negative. And the people then that were your friends may not be your friends today, and that's fine. They were welcome at that point in your life, but they're not welcome today in your life. And you will feel that. Oh my gosh, where do you feel that? To anybody out there, you feel it. You are your best judge of yourself, okay? Remember that. You are the best judge of yourself. Beautiful. I think we have to go. All right. Hopefully it was a great show. I learn a lot by those shows too if I re-listen. But thank you, Karen. You were an amazing guest.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Steve.
Again, scan the QR code and read Sally's book.
And then hopefully soon we're going to have another commercial all about my art on clothing, right? We can show it. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you to the studio. I love doing what I'm doing, and Dawn's been a little quiet over there, but I feel your presence, okay? And Freddie, I don't know what happened to him, but he was missed. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye till next week. You have been watching Call Me Zena with your host, Sally Barnard. As an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer, know that you can always seek me out for resources by visiting artbysallybarnard.com. Join us next week, Mondays at 2:30. Have a blessed day.